Hi everybody, welcome to MCU Q&A, the weekly show where we take all your questions about the Marvel Cinematic Universe or anything else that's on your mind. I'm Doug Herring, and with me, as always, is Addie Bree Hayes.
Hey guys! Hey Doug.
Hi Addie, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good. I always love doing these. We get some awesome questions and I love answering them.
This might be my favorite thing to do. I don't know.
It might be mine too. So are you ready to get started?
I am so ready.
Alright, before we do, if you want to ask a question to us that you can see answered on a future episode of MCU Q&A, please go down into the comments and ask your question below, or you can email us at mcuxshow@gmail.com. So if you have a question about anything at all, make sure that you get it to us one way or another, and you might see it answered on this show. So with taking Iron Man.
Well, I only had one guy. I felt a little... What?
Inadequate?
Yes.
Fair enough. Okay, so please ask your questions, guys, and with that being said, let's move on to this week's questions. We've picked out some really good ones.
Awesome.
So our first two questions, I thought we'd answer together because they're so similar. One of them comes from Andrew Watson, and he asks, what do you think is the worst superhero movie ever made? Meanwhile, Ignacio A asks, which is the best superhero movie ever made?
Okay. Worst? Initially, I was gonna say Spider-Man 3, but then because Spider-Man, he's like the Marvel character, so they made like a bad movie. But then I really got to thinking, we were talking, Green Lantern was, I remember seeing that, I think I was like in middle school, and I went and saw it with like non-comic book friends, and they like, we all just were like, that was atrocious. They knew it was an atrocious.
It wasn't that long ago. It came out in like 2011.
Okay, well, whatever. Like, high school, whatever. I just remember all of us, we all left and went to Barnes & Noble and sat and talked about how bad that was. Yeah. It was such an awful experience. Like, it was so bad, we were laughing at bad things, and it was, that was so bad.
Yeah, and you mentioned Spider-Man 3, and while that is by no means a masterpiece, it actually had some redeeming qualities. Venom looked good. Sandman was actually a really sympathetic villain.
Yeah, but then that dance scene.
Oh, yeah, it's not a good movie, but I agree, it's not the worst one ever made. Green Lantern, yeah, that's pretty bad.
It's pretty low.
Speaking of movies that turned their big villains into clouds, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, that's pretty atrocious.
I totally forgot that was Galactus.
Yeah, that purple cloud thing was supposed to be Galactus.
That's pretty awesome.
Now, of course, we're talking about bad superhero movies that have been made relatively recently. We decided before we started this episode that we weren't going to talk about all the many superhero movies made in the 90s and 80s and before that are just unwatchably bad. Yeah. If you want to know like the real worst superhero movie ever made, check out like the Captain America movie that was made in the 90s. That's pretty atrocious. I mean, it makes Green Lantern look like a work of art. Yeah.
So we had to like set some boundaries to make it a little bit easier for us to choose.
So Green Lantern's bad. The two Fantastic Four movies were pretty bad too.
But I do love Chris Evans.
Yeah. He made parts of that watchable.
Yeah, because I remember watching that like whenever it came out, and I was young and like enjoying it. Yeah. For the time.
Right. Yeah.
Same thing with Spider-Man 2 though, but the Green Lantern was one of those things at the time.
You mean Spider-Man 3?
What did I say?
Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah, and yes, I also enjoyed Spider-Man 2 at the time. Right. All the Spider-Man trilogy, but I remember watching Green Lantern at the time, just being like, never watching that ever again.
Yeah. X-Men Origins Wolverine too.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad. How about best?
Best? I would probably say The Dark Knight. As much as I love Civil War.
Yeah.
Civil War is probably my favorite Marvel movie, but Dark Knight is just so good.
It is. It's kind of the cliche answer to say that's the best movie, the best superhero movie ever made, but it's a cliched answer for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's a really, really good movie. If you haven't watched that in a while, watch it again. It's really, really good.
It's one of my most watched movies. It's up there, so.
And of course, The Avengers probably belongs in the conversation as well. Winter Soldier probably does too.
Civil War.
Civil War might, yeah. It's a little too recent for me to say best ever made, but yeah. But so yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll say Dark Knight. It's hard to fight that.
You guys can fight us in the comments below.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below.
But next question.
Okay. Pacman Wisdom asks, "What's your favorite superhero suit in the MCU?"
There's a handful that come to my mind. I really like Black Widow with her blue, like, electricity things. I think that was Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron, yeah.
That, I thought, was such a nice, like, upgrade that she wasn't just wearing, like, a black, like, kind of, like, agent suit that kind of made it her own, and that she, like, used that for herself.
Right.
Also, I love Spider-Man's suit, so...
yeah.
It's something, like, we've never really seen before with the eyes. That really is cool.
Yeah, but
I really like the eyes.
I agree with you, and I totally see where you're coming from, but we had seen Spider-Man's suit done well on screen.
No, I meant the eyes we haven't seen before.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm with you, but the fact that we'd seen Spider-Man done well before is why it's not my pick, and my pick I have two picks, which were amazing suits that were so incredibly faithful to the comics that we'd never seen on screen before, and they just nailed perfectly. So for me, it's the Iron Man Mark III, which isn't necessarily my favorite Iron Man suit. The one he wore in Civil War was actually probably even better, but just the feeling of seeing an Iron Man suit so perfectly rendered from the comics, but not in a way where it looked cheesy, in a way where it looked almost like it could really exist. Yeah. And then by the exact same token, Black Panther.
Yeah, that was my other one.
The details on Black Panther's suit are so gorgeous. Yeah. So that might be my, and I think I mentioned in our Civil War review that Black Panther might have taken my spot for favorite suit.
Maybe.
Yeah. So
I know we've talked about it.
It's Black Panther for me.
Black Panther is definitely in my top 3.
I mean, even when you look at characters like Captain America, who some of his suits I've really, really liked. Yeah. But they don't...
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, the Winter Soldier suit, the stealth suit is great.
I love that.
Even the one he wore in the first Avenger. Not the first Avengers movie. The first Captain America, the first Avenger.
Not the Avengers one.
The Avengers one is
a little,
train wreck.
A little goofy.
They're great looking suits, but they don't look exactly like they do in the comics. Yeah. They look like they're inspired by what he looks like in the comics. Yeah. Whereas Black Panther and Iron Man, those two suits, it just feels, and Doctor Strange too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Which we haven't seen on screen.
We haven't seen a lot of. We've only seen like pictures. I didn't really say that one.
But the pictures, yeah. I mean, when a movie is able to rip something straight out of the pages of a comic book and not make it look cheesy, that is pretty impressive to me. So those are my picks.
Cool.
Alrighty. Iron Piece Films asks, if Marvel ever makes an R-rated movie, which character do you think it should be that Marvel already has the rights for?
I mean, I feel like the R-rated stuff already has a home in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Netflix, and they do that for a reason.
I agree.
So they like really get a targeted audience and probably make more money that way. Yeah, I can't really think of any myself. I really like what they've been. It's like one of the Defenders could have a movie, but why would they? Right. We get more out of Netflix because we get like a 13
I completely
season.
Agree. Yeah, and the reason we took this question is we get this question a lot. Iron Piece Films is not the most recent person to ask us. I think he was the first person to ask it, which is why we wanted to take this one. Yeah. But yeah, I don't see the need for an R-rated movie at all. Because like you said, they have R-rated characters. They've done R-rated stuff. I mean, if you put any of the Jessica Jones stuff in theaters, it'd probably get an R rating. Oh, yeah. If you put what The Punisher does in theaters, it might get an R rating. And so why would I want an R-rated Punisher movie when I could have 13 hours of a Punisher series?
Yeah, exactly.
So if I had to say, I know they have the rights to Blade, and they've been talking about reviving that, and I guess if they made a Blade movie, I'd hope that it was R-rated. But more than that, I'd hope it wasn't a movie.
Yeah, I hope it would be on Netflix, so...
Yeah, Blade, Moon Knight, Ghost Rider, these are all characters that I think could maybe work with an R rating, but would just work better with Netflix.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, sorry.
Cool. No, thanks for the question. And if they ever did make an R-rated movie, I'd be really interested to see which character they use for it. Yeah, exactly.
It'd be very surprising.
But yeah, as far as I'm concerned right now, it's not something that I'm hoping for immediately.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right, moving on. Lightning Blade 311 asks, what do you think will happen to the MCU if and when Kevin Feige leaves Marvel Studios?
I think it won't be as good. Yeah. I feel like the best case scenario is that the next guy they only do like 1 to 2 superhero movies a year. Because
that's your best case scenario?
I think like they're good. I think the worst case scenario, I really think it could like burn down.
I completely
because
agree.
Feige is such a great grasp, and it's like a well-oiled machine right now. I feel like if someone came in, they might like totally bust it up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, the thing about Kevin Feige is he is not in charge of any of the individual movies. Mm-hmm. So I think without him, we'd still get some really, really good individual movies.
Yeah.
But he's responsible for making the entire universe work well together, to make it feel like the well-oiled machine that it is.
I agree.
And so if Feige leaves, I think we might see, like, let's say Edgar Wright wanted to make an Ant-Man movie. Edgar Wright probably would have made a really, really great Ant-Man movie that wouldn't have fit in the MCU.
Yeah.
Maybe that movie can exist without Feige. And Ant-Man is better for it. But the MCU as a whole is worse off.
Yeah.
And I also think we start seeing really bad MCU movies. Like, not... Like, people in the comments when we took on our first episode of MCU Q&A, we asked, will Marvel ever make a bad movie? And people in the comments said, oh, they already have. Thor 2 or Iron Man 3. I'm not talking that level of bad. I'm talking about, like Batman v Superman level bad movies. Or Fantastic Four level bad movies. Because there's not somebody corralling directors and making sure that everything works right. So yeah, I agree. I think, if you watch like a TV show, like I'm a big Community fan.
Yeah, I love
and I've been rewatching West Wing. Mm-hmm. And those are two shows, both of them experience the loss of the main person driving that vision. For Community, it was Dan Harmon, who was basically kicked out in season 4. Mm-hmm. And for West Wing, it was Aaron Sorkin. And both of them, when they lost that driving creative force, they really, really suffered.
Yeah.
I mean, season 4 of Community is just not the same show.
No, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, exactly. And then even when Harmon came back, it improved. I don't think it ever got as good as it did. But so I think getting Kevin Feige... Now, Kevin Feige is not the sole driver of the artistic vision behind the MCU. You have the individual writers and directors for that. But
he just has so many hands everywhere that he knows how to work stuff now. And
replacing him, getting rid of him, I think it's going to take an element away from the MCU that's going to make it feel not like the MCU anymore.
Yeah.
I'd love to be proven wrong. Because,
I hope so.
Like Lightning Blade says, it's not if, it's when. I mean, Kevin Feige's not going to be doing this forever.
Yeah.
Eventually he's going to move on. And when that day comes, I'll be very, very nervous about the future of the MCU.
Absolutely.
And I can't even think about who I might like to see replace him.
Oh, no.
There's nobody that comes to mind that could do it. I mean, even the Russo brothers, which...
Yeah, that was like the first thing that came to my mind, but they're directors.
They're directors. We don't know what they're doing. I mean, they're working with Kevin Feige to shape Phase 3, but I don't know if they could be doing it without him, you know?
I totally agree. But the one nice thing is that they are two people, so
yes,
that seems to help a lot with them.
And
especially with Civil War. That proved a lot for Infinity Wars.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we were talking about, I know I like saying this, and I've seen this on the internet, they had to replace Joss Whedon with 4 people. When he did Avengers and Age of Ultron, he wrote and directed. Now, Infinity War is being written by 2 people and directed by 2 people. Joss Whedon had to be replaced by 4 people. Kevin Feige needs to be replaced by a team of 30.
Yeah.
But then you're getting movies made entirely by committee, and that loses something as well. So, on that super happy note...
Death of the MCU.
Let's move on to our last question for the day.
Sweet.
Which comes from Understanding Comics. And they want to know, I know it's not MCU, but what's your opinion of Miles Morales rumored to star in the animated film? Yeah, it's not MCU, but that's okay. It's a superhero question. We're interested in it, so ask away. For anybody that doesn't know what Understanding Comics is talking about, Sony has announced an animated Spider-Man movie set to be released, I believe, in 2018. Although, who knows with Sony, that date could change, or it could never happen. But this movie is going to be animated, have nothing at all to do with the MCU, nothing at all to do with Tom Holland. It's a totally separate Spider-Man. And I think that is the perfect opportunity to introduce Miles Morales.
Oh, yeah.
For a couple of reasons. Firstly, because Miles is a great character. Now, I do think they need to introduce Peter Parker as well. Because part of what makes Miles a great character is that he feels responsible for Peter Parker's death. Mm-hmm. So if you just make Miles Morales the first Spider-Man, I think you're just changing Spider-Man's name.
Yeah.
I think Miles Morales is a really interesting character. And to make that character as interesting, you have to give him his origin story, which is that he's trying to fill the shoes of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So I hope they introduce him and have him die relatively early on in the movie, and then make the animated series all about Miles, because he's a great character. But more than that, or as much as that, at least, I just don't like the idea of there being two versions of Peter Parker in theaters at the same time.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
But it still worries me that it's Sony alone, and doesn't have any hand with Marvel, because saying that, like, Miles Morales happens because a big part of Miles Morales is Peter Parker dying.
Right.
I could see Sony just, like, cutting it out.
So I could easily see them just getting rid of that and making him the first Spider-Man.
Which is great still, but it loses a lot, I feel like, for
to
Miles.
me, it's like having Bruce Wayne and his parents just abandoned him. Or it's like having Peter Parker and there is no Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really key part of the character's origin story, and to just get rid of it seems to change the character fundamentally.
Yeah. It'd be kind of cool if I had Tom Holland voice Spider-Man when he dies or whatever, but he's too young sounding.
It would have to be a little bit older Spider-Man.
Yeah, if Miles Morales, Tom Holland went a little lower.
Right. Well, but we know Spider-Man as a character so well that I don't think it would be hard at all to do it. I mean, like, Batman Begins, which is a great animated series, Batman Beyond, I mean.
Yeah, I know, I got you.
You got me. Batman Begins, also a good movie, yes. But Batman Beyond, it starts, and it doesn't reintroduce Bruce Wayne as Batman. Mm-hmm. It just assumes you know who Batman is. Mm-hmm. And then it introduces Terry McGinnis, who becomes the new Batman. And I think that would be a cool way to do a Spider-Man movie where you just, from the beginning, okay, you know what Spider-Man's all about. You know who Peter Parker is. That's not the Spider-Man we're worrying about. But this world already knows about him, you know? Maybe Spider-Man's been Spider-Manning for 10 or 15 years at this point, and that's when that's when the movie takes place and Miles takes up the mantle. Yeah.
I guess we'll see whenever the synopsis comes out.
Yeah.
Then I'll totally feel for it. Oh, it'd be cool if, like, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield voice Spider-Man before he dies, if they have that. That would be cute.
I think Tobey Maguire voicing him would be really great.
Yeah.
Because Tobey is now in his, like,
40s.
Is he in his 40s? I think that
he and Leonardo DiCaprio are about the same age, and Leo's 40. He's 4.
He was 4. Yeah, so having him play, because it's not like Spider-Man's an old man.
Yeah.
He's just
older.
Adult. Right,
yeah.
He's an adult. So to have Tobey Maguire voice him, I think would be pretty fun.
That'd be pretty cool. Come on, Sony, hire me. I got great ideas.
Yeah. Well, you can't have any worse ideas than what they're already doing.
Or
what they've already done, right? But no, I think that Spider-Man is a great character, and to have two versions of him on screen at the same time would be great.
I really like it.
But to have two versions of the same character on screen, I think could be confusing, even if one of them's animated.
Yeah, I'm very interested in what they do with this movie.
Yeah, so am I. And I really hope it's good.
Yeah, I do too. It's not like I want it to be bad. I really hope Sony does a good job with it.
Just give it to Fox, make it a Lego movie. I can't wait for Lego Batman.
That's actually, that'll probably be good.
I'm sure that's going to be good.
It's going to be really good.
Have you seen the cast for that?
Yes, I've seen the cast for it.
Michael Cera as Robin. That's amazing.
And Will Arnett is just wonderful.
Yes, he is. And this has now become Lego Batman Q&A. So I think it is time, before we get totally off schedule, to wrap things up.
Awesome.
So again, guys, please go into the comments below and ask us your questions for next week. Or you can email us. Again, our email is mcuxshow@gmail.com. I'm Doug Herring, and make sure you're following the MCU Exchange at the MCU Exchange on Twitter, or just at MCU Exchange on Facebook.
I'm Addie Bree Hayes. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Addie Bree.
And thank you so much, guys. We will see you next time.
Bye.